Next, bungee jumper gets caught on her own line. Savage whitewater almost takes a raft into a foaming grave.
Carter, let go of the boat!
And a quiet city park turns into a war zone.
Deborah, get down!
Good times also go bad when skydivers spin out of control after being tangled by their own parachute.
Oh my God!
Bargain hunters get more than they bargained for when a sail turns into a stampede. And a bridge collapse traps survivors in a river of poison. Good times go bad when a hike turns into a hair-raising adventure.
I smelled burning.
And an amusement park turns out to be anything but amusing. Good times also go bad when a beauty queen's crowning achievement goes hideously wrong. A log ride turns into an out-of-control toboggan. Good times go bad when a racehorse careens into a baby carriage, and the baby survives without a scratch. And terror is uncovered when a covered wagon careens out of control. And good times go bad when a boating trip turns into a desperate fight for survival.
Get that boat out of there!
And runaway chimps go ape in a zoo gift shop. Sometimes the whole point of a good time is seeing how close you can come to the edge of having the worst time imaginable. These adrenaline-inducing extreme sports usually are more frightening to the spectators than they are to the actual participants. But occasionally, things can go wrong.
When I started talking to Greg, that I realized that something was wrong.
Okay, Greg, you're gonna have to help Blair if you can!
Because I noticed he was bleeding from the head, and he was hanging limp and shaking.
Tim tried to keep his friend conscious, but time was running out, and the ground was rushing closer.
Magnet for brushes with death, I guess you could say.
Roller coaster riders get the ride of their lives when a coaster traps them at the top of a loop. A race car careens into a crowd, leaking gas that just might lead to an explosion. A brave airshow pilot saves hundreds of lives, but not his multi-million-dollar stealth fighter. And a circus elephant runs amok, trapping a family of 4 on its back. When good times go bad. Anytime, anywhere, at any place, no matter how beautiful. And in the fall of 1992, an offshore storm brought huge waves to the coast of Hawaii. Waves that inspired surfers to risk their lives. Again. And again. And again. And when this wave crashed down on this surfer, he was knocked unconscious and sucked under. The impact of this killer wave was equal to being crushed under hundreds of pounds of concrete being dropped from 20 feet. Fortunately, the day that this accident occurred was the first day that jet skis were employed by lifeguards, and within minutes, the surfer was dragged out of the water. He regained consciousness, and amazingly, considering the impact of the crushing surf, was uninjured. New Zealand, to be whipped into a foaming frenzy by storms, to be deadly. A river gone wild can be dangerous and exhilarating as well.
Ultimately, the worst thing that can happen is you can die, but that's not something that you go into a trip and think about.
The Trinity River in Northern California is considered to be a Class 5 river, and as such, it is a magnet to river rafters. In May of 1991, a group of experienced rafters put an expedition together to test their skills against the foaming waves.
It's a pretty grueling day when you add everything into it, all the running of the rapids, the setting of the safety, and everything else that's involved. You're pretty exhausted by the end of the day.
It was late in the afternoon, and the team was at the head of the biggest of the rapids. John kayaked through the waves ahead of the raft and set up his video camera.
On any trip, there's a certain amount of nervousness, especially when you start boating on Class 5. And the guide of this boat had decided that it wasn't the right time to run that rapid, and he didn't feel good about it. But unfortunately, there's 6 other people in the boat with him, and they all felt good about it. So I guess it became a matter of wills.
The first boat went through without difficulty, but the second raft immediately ran into trouble.
I watched their boat go in, and it dove straight into the hole and just stopped. And you can see the guide just get thrown to the center of the raft. And so that sets up another bad scene in that the raft now is still in the hole, and you got the guide in the center of the boat trying to figure out where he is, and everyone pauses for a second, and that's all it takes is just that little split second of hesitation.
5 of the passengers were swept free to safety, but one of the team, Naomi Downey, was trapped in a vicious churning vortex called a hydraulic. Naomi desperately clawed for life.
Naomi was hanging onto the side of the raft, so she'd try and swim out every few turns. The raft is just spinning in the hydraulic, and every time it would come around, she'd try and make a mad dash to get out of the hydraulic, but each time she'd get a little more weaker and a little more weaker. And that's when I started really getting scared, because you could see that she was running out of energy. And also you could see she wasn't going anywhere.
Tell her to let go of the boat!
I had not been in a particular situation where the raft stayed in the hole for so long. So my thought was, stay with the raft.
Finally, Naomi lost her grip.
And that was her savior, in essence, because by being sucked underneath the river, that's where the fast current was.
Swim.
She just floats through the rapid and tumbles over a rock, and all we could do is just hope that she had some kind of strength left to grab a safety rope.
On the riverbank, Naomi's companions had only a few seconds to throw her a safety line before she swept past them to certain death. The first toss missed, and then the second. But on the third, they scored a direct hit.
In 11 years of boating, I've seen a lot of people throw bags, and it takes a lot of practice and a lot of skill, and I've never seen a throw as accurate as that one.
Thank God somebody threw me a rope, and it was a perfect throw. Once I had a hold of that rope, I knew I was fine, and I could finally completely relax, because I was so incredibly exhausted.
Naomi was pulled to safety.
I mean, Naomi was just lifeless in the boat. We just laid her in the boat and just tried to give her some air and some space, and let her kind of collect her senses. And at that point, that was the end of the day of rafting for all the people in that boat.
Today, Naomi still rafts, and she and her companions have learned an important lesson about underestimating nature.
Well, certainly the lessons that we learned, one of the lessons is that no matter how much preparedness you have, no matter how much experience, no matter how much training, nature is still in control of any situation.
The biggest memory I have is just that little girl staring at me and screaming, looking me right in the eyes, help, help me. First reaction, I came up with the pumps in my arms. I just dropped them when we saw these people in the water, half screaming, half under the barge, and getting ripped down the current. My reaction was like, let's go in for them.
When the Next, an exercise in nostalgia turns into an exercise in terror. Bruce Willis, large crowd, top secret aircraft. In England in 1993, 2 Russian jets were performing high-speed acrobatics when, once again, tragedy was averted when the planes crashed away from the crowd. Both pilots survived, although 15 spectators were treated for shock. Any devotee of car racing knows that accidents are commonplace. But occasionally, those accidents can spill over into the crowd. The only thing that these crashes have in common is one amazing thing. Nobody in the crowd was seriously injured. Sometime, this Hong Kong parade was going according to schedule when one of the floats began to go off course. Carbon monoxide fumes had knocked the driver unconscious, and the vehicle powered into the crowd, putting an end to the festivities. Weeks later, talk about pioneer spirit. Covered wagons can be dangerous, as these children discovered in a Missouri parade. Other than acquiring a new respect for their pioneer ancestors, the children came through unscathed. Horses are easily spooked, and at this halftime show in Tampa, Florida, one horse was driven to distraction by the sound of a marching band. Fortunately, the only thing seriously trampled in this incident was a few musicians' dignity. Perhaps the most famous celebration that went very bad took place in Atlanta's Olympic Park in 1996. The world was stunned when they saw what had happened. But for one of the people who actually took the shocking pictures, the blast almost meant an end to his good times forever. News cameraman Mark Field was covering the concert when he noticed something peculiar, this unattended backpack.
As my partner was playing with the cables, he says, "Hey, why don't you start shooting this and I'll worry about the live stuff." And as I pushed the button in the camera,
The explosion was caused by 3 pipe bombs encrusted with a lethal layer of nails and screws. When it detonated, the shrapnel flew across the field.
when the bomb went off, there was a blast of wind that went by me. I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt since it was 90 degrees, hot and humid. And when the wind blew by me, I could feel like a little sandpaper burn on the back of my leg. And what I realized later was those were the nails and screws whizzing by me that just scratched the back of my leg. A couple days later, after I picked up my camera again, there was a nick in the camera lens, so that could have been my eye. I just was incredibly lucky that somehow the bomb missed me.
In the silence following the blast, time literally stood still.
And it wasn't that loud, but I remember the flash and the boom and a little fireball. I picked up the camera and I started rolling instantly, and I could see all these people laying on the ground in front of me. I'm like, well, why are all these people laying on the ground?
Ron, you okay? She's with me! Go! She's with me! You better go now! She's with me, sir! That's my partner! Go! That's my partner! Go!
The bombing in the park forever redefined the word terrorism, and for one reluctant eyewitness, his life would never be the same.
I can still see the actual flash of the bomb going off. I can still replay those moments. There's nights when I'm restless and have a hard time going to sleep because I can still replay that moment in my head over and over again.
Next, a wedding turns into a firestorm.
Oh, hell.
Few events are more thrilling than a horse race, but horses can get wild. And in the case of this horse at Hoosier Park in Indiana, wild means real wild. Fortunately, both spectators and horse escaped unscathed.
1987 Shelby County Fair is Miss Melinda Lynn.
For Mindy Settles, a nightmare started with a dream come true.
I think it's a dream for most of the girls in Shelby County to compete for the Fair Queen pageant, so I went ahead and tried it, not thinking that I would win, but I did.
Being a fair queen has its privileges and its responsibilities.
The Tuesday night after I was crowned, we had decided that we were going to do a promotional harness racing contest for fun. I mean, it was all for fun, and it was myself and the fair board members who were going to compete against each other. We had no idea that it would turn out how it did.
The afternoon of the ceremonial parade started in triumph and almost ended in tragedy.
I was in a pretty good position to be at the start, so I was pretty much ahead of everybody from the beginning, so I was just having fun with it.
The confused horse got spooked when it saw a white line in the dirt. The rest happened in a heartbeat.
As soon as she saw it, you could tell she got scared and her ears went up, and since she was a pacer, she didn't have much of a chance to get out of it at all. Her legs just buckled and cart and everything, end over end. It just catapulted me that hard over top of her, and just luckily I did get over her back legs and everything.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please be seated. Just everyone here.
Mindy lay in the wreckage, terrified, as the other carts headed towards her.
I didn't want to get run over by any of the other carts coming by me, and so I just laid still too, but my initial thought was that something was wrong with my legs because I couldn't move my legs.
Although not seriously injured, Mindy was confined to a wheelchair for the rest of her ceremonial week. And when she saw the videotape, she knew how close she had come to real tragedy.
I was overwhelmed. I really couldn't bring up words to describe what I saw. I knew that that day my life probably could have changed, and it kind of puts into perspective on what can happen in any given time or any moment in your life.
But the best news for Mindy was that her horse came through the nightmare as well as she did.
The horse wasn't hurt actually at all, and it had a baby, I believe, in the fall, early fall, and they named it Mindy.
Sometimes amusement parks can be anything but amusing when their regular attractions become fatal attractions. Recently, 33 students who had crowded together against regulations brought about the collapse of this water slide. This shows what can happen when people insist on pushing the envelope of safety. Wildlife can always get wild, no matter what the location. At a circus in Palm Bay, Florida, a 27-year-old elephant was giving rides to circus goers. A family of 5 was celebrating a birthday by taking a ride on its back when the elephant ran amok. And after several minutes, trainers were finally able to pull them safely off the frenzied elephant. Part of the thrill of a circus is watching the performers risking their lives, redefining the meaning of the word daredevil. But their good times can go bad in a heartbeat. This performer survived his deadly spin with only minor injuries. But sometimes the most innocent of locations can turn deadly, as these picnickers found out during a summer outing at Los Angeles' Griffith Park Pony Ride.
We decided to go to the grass area. We put a blanket down, and we sat for about 5 minutes. Then I noticed these 2 people arguing. Next video camera, and I started videotaping.
The gunman had just robbed the pony operator at gunpoint. Undaunted, the operator took after the thief with a lead pipe. Unfortunately, he never caught up with the crook, who disappeared into the woods.
When I was videotaping this guy with a gun and shooting, I was thinking that any minute he was gonna see me and just walk up to me and shoot me. So yeah, I was really scared.
All in all, the gunman fired 6 shots. Fortunately, he was as bad a shot as he was a responsible member of society. Every shot missed. Next, a wedding day turns to a nightmare when the ceremony, part of the good time.
This is where the actual polar bear broke the bone of my leg. So he's actually gone into the leg and taken most of my nerve and muscle tissues as well. I felt this excruciating pain, and yet I was quite amazed how it did it in such a short time. Well, I won't be visiting any more zoos.
Australia advertised a post-Christmas super sale. And when doors were opened, the gathered crowd went berserk. Some even running up the down escalator. Fortunately, nobody was seriously injured.
An originality of costume.
Also in Australia, a huge crowd of spectators convened for a belly flop contest in Sydney. The crush of the crowd was so large that it led to a collapse of the dock viewing platform.
Fun turned to chaos. The also people crowded onto the walkway.
Once again, there were no serious injuries.
Most managed to scramble to safety.
Broke loose.
Good times go bad when a wedding turns into a 4-alarm fire.
Coming up at 10, wicked weather down south and here at home. A woman's in the hospital after the bricks came tumbling down. Another woman was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she was run down by a stolen car. And a pilot's miracle landing. We'll see you soon.
And good times don't get any better than a wedding and a honeymoon.
All hell broke loose, and the wedding changed from a wedding to more of an event.
For Daryl and Rosina Warkentin, bad times decided to carry out a very personal vendetta. Apartment building across the street.
Originally, when I saw the fire, I was scared for the people. You know, it's a tragedy that's going on here. There's going to be something lost.
But in this case, one person's ruined wedding party is another's salvation, because the crowd of trained firefighters knew just what to do. They saved precious time by getting the raging blaze under control before the local fire team arrived.
If our reception wasn't at that place, if we went to another building or something, or if those firefighters wouldn't have been there, the trucks would have gotten there a minute later.
After the slightly charred wedding, it was time for the couple's honeymoon at a studio tour in Hollywood. Once there, they decided to visit the thrilling fire attraction, and that was when their good times really went bad.
We went in, and we thought, you know, wow, this is really real. And Daryl was saying they even have like the smells down because he smelled something burning. And fire broke out on the roof.
No, I think this is real. Yeah, there's black going on.
The couple soon returned home to begin their new life. They hope that their good times together can only get better. They hope.
When's the next one? I don't know. We'll let you know, huh? We'll contact you.